So if you are a USDC depositor into Aave, anyone holding the crypto whitelisted on Aave could borrow your USDC. So you could not say, for example, I'm only lending my USDC to users collateralizing ETH, staked ETH, and that's it. That's my risk. So the problem that we solved it by creating small pools, separated. Each pool is a separate smart contract. There's no systemic risk. So that USDC user now can deposit, let's say, a USDC in one isolated market and managing risk better. And of course, that creates a lot of benefits. So definitely risk management, better risk management. Second, some other markets, other isolated markets naturally would pay you higher rates for your USDC deposit.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Edge Podcast. I'm DeFi Dad here with Nomadic from 4RC. Today's show spotlights veSILO Finance, a DeFi protocol on Ethereum and Arbitrum for creating risk-isolated lending markets. Different than a shared pool lending protocol with a single pool lending market for all supported assets such as Aave, veSILO uses an isolated pool approach where every token asset has its own lending market. Users or projects can propose new markets to be voted on to support blue-chip assets such as ETH/LSTs, as well as long-tail assets or even LPs not found on the largest money markets. In this episode, we'll discuss how this approach can provide us more choices and more controls as lenders and borrowers in DeFi money markets, as well as future plans for veSILO, including the implementation of tokenomics. But before we do, just a quick word from our sponsors who make the Edge podcast possible. For most of us, our crypto journey started with MetaMask, and now with MetaMask Portfolio, we can do so much more. MetaMask Portfolio puts you in control. Use the dashboard to see all your assets and balances across your wallets in one place. The buy feature allows us to buy crypto assets effortlessly with fiat options such as PayPal or credit card. The swap feature allows us to swap any tokens anytime by finding a selection of available rates. The bridge feature allows us to bridge between networks including Ethereum, L1s, and L2s based on the best price and fastest delivery time. And with the stake feature, anyone in a few clicks can stake ETH and earn rewards. Do more in Web3 your way with a safe, simple, and convenient tool that's all in one place. Track and manage your Web3 everything at metamask.io/portfolio. Mike, before we get back to the show, can you explain what is liquid restaking?
Everybody at this point is familiar with liquid staking. It lets you take your staked ETH, mint a liquid staking token, and then use that token in DeFi. Well, the hottest thing in staking right now is restaking. It's the ability to reuse your staked ETH to provide Ethereum's trust layer to other services that want to benefit from it. Services like data availability layers, Oracle networks, other blockchains, and beyond. The benefit of restaking is that you get to earn additional staking rewards on top of your normal staking rewards. Well, currently, if you want to restake your ETH, your only option is to lock up your ETH. The reason that's a problem is because you can't use your restaked ETH in DeFi. We are launching ETH, the ETHER.FI liquid restaking token, because with liquid restaking, users get the benefit of staking rewards, restaking rewards, and they get to collect loyalty points for ETHER.FI and EigenLayer through this token. So it's the easiest way to get exposure to two up-and-coming early protocols, and on top of that, get all the benefits of staking and restaking.
To learn more about ETH liquid staking and liquid restaking, go to ETHER.FI.
It all started so simply with CryptoKitties and Maker on Ethereum, but quickly became complex with more applications and many chains. Today, everyone agrees UX issues are the biggest blocker standing in the way of crypto adoption. Introducing Avocado. Multi-chain UX redesigned from the ground up. The first wallet to abstract networks, accounts, and gas. One gas tank to pay transaction fees on all chains in USDC. And native access to Instadapp's powerful, custom DeFi strategies. Avocado, one wallet to rule all chains.
All right, let's introduce AJ, a founding contributor to veSILO Finance. AJ, welcome to the Edge Podcast. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
I know we've talked quite a bit over the years with veSILO, and I've written up multiple tutorials over the years because veSILO was a very unique protocol from the time it launched. There are these shared pool lending protocols that we're all very accustomed to, like Aave, and there's a different approach there to veSILO. I want to say that you all were like a kind of a pioneer trailblazer in building this type of protocol. And just this year, Nomadic and I have recorded quite a few podcasts with other founders, some of those founders also being OG DeFi founders who have come around to believing that siloing money markets might be a more secure approach, might be even a more scalable approach than what we've seen with the likes of Aave and Compound. So anyways, just excited to kind of dig in with you. What's new with veSILO, what's next, and how you see yourself fitting into the DeFi landscape going into 2024. But before we talk a little bit more about veSILO, can you share anything more about your background and maybe the origin story of building veSILO?
Yeah, absolutely. Really, super excited to tell you about veSILO and myself. veSILO actually comes thanks to Kashi and Rari, of course, these two and the OGs behind those protocols, and I wish they had continued. Really have utmost respect to founders. So 2021, a few of us DeFi OGs thought, well, definitely we need to have money markets for some of the token assets that we've farmed, and there's no way you could get them listed on Aave and Compound. We just entered the hackathon. Came up with the idea, the design, and then raised actually just by doing a token auction through Gnosis batch auction. So it was access, of course, restricted in the US, but outside the US was accessible to really any user. We wanted to go that route. We did not want to go the VC routes, and we raised a bunch. And then from there, we assembled a team and started coding really the real version. And in August we launched, and since then been a grind, really trying to get funds into the money markets and encourage borrowers as well, telling them about the benefits of risk isolation. That's really the key that we bring to the table here. Is basically how do we give users better way to manage risk? That's it. It's very simple. I think users still need to split their portfolio among 2 to 3 lending protocols, and we hope that veSILO will be one of them. In addition to of course the OGs. So that's really the thesis here. The veSILO is really a great story because we just built it from the ground up, new code, hiring. Really, we kind of followed the Silicon Valley approach in terms of developing the simplest minimum viable product and rolling it out and finding product market fit and all really the whole 9 yards of building a company. So it's been really a challenge. Every day is a challenge. Every day is a great day actually for us. We're about 12, 13 people, and 10 of us are full-time. The rest is just help us out with math and research and all of it. So it's a small team, very, very efficient and very slow to release as well. We take our time.
AJ, let's get a bit more into veSILO. DeFi Dad kind of teased it a bit in the intro here, but I would love to hear it kind of in your words, just at a high level, what veSILO is and how it differs from, I guess, lending platforms that people may be familiar with as well.
Right. So the key here is to probably giving an example would be great. So if you are a USDC depositor into Aave, you're technically anyone holding the crypto whitelisted on Aave could borrow your USDC. So you could not say, for example, I'm only lending my USDC to users collateralizing ETH, staked ETH, and that's it. That's my risk. You cannot. Once you deposit your USDC, your risk exposure or your risk is exposed to the entire crypto asset in the pool. So there's no way you could segregate that. Even with risk isolation that I have today, it's really capped. So it doesn't solve the problem. So the problem that we solved it by creating small pools, separated. Each pool is a separate smart contract. There's no systemic risk. So that USDC user now can deposit, let's say, a USDC in one isolated market and managing risk better. So, for example, on Arbitrum, we have about 15 markets. One of them, let's say, the Lido wrap staked ETH market that is paired with USDC and ETH. You can say, as a USDC user, I can say like, okay, I'm depositing in that specific market, and only users depositing either ETH or the wrapped version of Lido can borrow my asset, and that's it. So if you have other assets, they cannot borrow. So you're basically choosing your risk, customizing the risk, modulating your risks. Exactly why we created veSILO. And of course, that creates a lot of benefits. So definitely risk management, better risk management. Second, some other markets, other isolated markets, naturally would pay you higher rates for your USDC deposit. So if you're lending to a risky asset, you should expect higher returns. Now in Aave, that's not possible because they have only one interest rate curve for all USDC depositors. It's always 3%, 4%. However, for a riskier asset, maybe some you deem risky, but maybe if they pay you, let's say, average 15 or 20% APR, that is enough to justify the risk you're taking. And you could maybe allocate a little bit of your portfolio, not your entire USDC deposit, which is not possible on other lending protocols. So technically speaking, risk management, better risk management, and optimized yield as well, because now you could allocate some of your portfolio to higher yielding markets. And that's really what risk isolation, the benefits of risk isolation in lending.
Yeah, when you get into the veSILO app, what might confuse some if they've only used something like Aave is you just have a lot more choice. You get in there, you have all these markets, and historically, for folks in the future who listen to this, there is an option that will no longer be there, which is this XAI stablecoin, which we'll talk a little bit about. But in the past, you would look and you would normally have the two choices of you could lend ETH. So as a lender, I might say, I want to lend it at a higher rate to something riskier or at a lower rate to something that's not as risky. And then I also have the option of this XAI stable coin. And so anyways, I think, yeah, what's been really powerful about that is just the controls, the optionality that veSILO has provided, which I do remember thinking like early on that maybe there was too much choice and that, just dumbing it down the way that like an Aave shared pool sort of approach does it. But now, as we go into 2024, we're finding like all these other protocols are sort of like reinventing themselves and clearly taking some inspiration from what you've done. We had Instadap on they have Fluid coming, and Fluid is taking a somewhat siloed approach. And I think Morpho Blue to some degree has been influenced by what you've done there. One of the things that we called out, though, is the permissionless creation of money markets. Can you just quickly walk us through, like, what is the process behind that? Like, I can't just go in and just create any money market, right? Like, I do have to get some sort of buy-in or process in place.
Definitely the team has to deploy it and they have to activate, we have to activate the Oracle for you in order to get the market. And in the beginning, we wanted to do permissionless creation of markets, the Uniswap and Cashi type. But then we thought, well, let's first learn how that goes, because with Rari, unfortunately, there was a lot of confusion there. Although Rari was completely permissionless, but a lot of people did not really understand that. So they did not, and the team had really nothing to do with it and had some issues, some pools getting exploited due to an Oracle, of course, not the anything else. But so we thought, well, let's just have some control over it. At least you could delist a market, list a market. So the list is actually the process quite simple. You contact us or tell us or whatever, like you want to deploy a market, and we'll look at it if there's an Oracle and if there's like enough liquidity. If we can liquidate, we'll launch it. A lot of assets are not liquid enough to be worthy to have a money market, unfortunately. So This is going to change, of course, going forward, and like we'll talk about the roadmap in a bit. But right now, we just normal conversation with the team, request through any of our channels, including Twitter, and we'll deploy it if there is if we can fulfill our basic responsibility here, which is making sure that at least in the beginning there's a good oracle to work with. A second, liquidations are possible. You've touched actually on a really important point, which is now you could deposit USDC on 10 markets on SILO Arbitrum, and you could probably earn now with the rewards, with the ARB rewards, you could earn from something between 7 to 13%, which is really great for a stablecoin. And then, so how do you handle that? And honestly speaking, like that's great, because for us, each SILO is only designed to match lenders and borrowers in an obvious without obfuscating risk. So now, if I'm a USDC user, I'm only really matching you with someone who's willing to borrow your USDC user with ETH. Now, the risk is not obfuscated. It's clear. You're matching two users with two clear collaterals. Unlike other protocols where you don't know who's borrowing your USDC. Anyway, the market should cap at one point, and this cap, we think the logical cap should be proportional to how much liquidity available on dexes in order to liquidate. Remember what happened with Curve? It grew really massively in relation to the liquidity available, and that created some systemic risk, obviously, to Aave. And SILO does not create systemic risk. It only creates risk for those who's lending stablecoin to Curve depositors. So these are really just you matching users, technically speaking, and risk, really. Just the marketplace, you're matching lender on borrower, and that's it. Yes, you have it. You have a lot of choices. If it happens that you trust multiple collateral, you could split your portfolio, or you could rebalance, which is possible in Arbitrum. It creates issues on mainnet because of gas. You have to remove each, let's say, from a market to another. But that's something that I think we will solve in V2, and other protocols can build on top of us. You've mentioned other developers also. They're coming up with their own vault layers that should do this rebalancing among a set of markets you trust without having you doing it all the time.
AJ, you mentioned Arbitrum. I'm curious just kind of what pattern you're seeing with users between, I guess, your Ethereum mainnet offering and Arbitrum offering. Like, are you seeing like a lot of flow of liquidity to Arbitrum now? Like, is that vision kind of starting to play out, or where are your users mostly congregated right now?
Definitely Arbitrum. Arbitrum, we have about, I think, 90 million in terms of value locked, which is a metric we don't care much about. But we have about 33 million, I think, borrowed, which is really, that's what matters to us. So you'd be surprised when gas is cheap. That opens up a lot of possibility. Arbitrum is a well-mature ecosystem. Incredibly collaborative, by the way. There is just a sense of, we actually, for example, we've got Radiant tweeting SILO, which is technically two lending protocols. We do the same, and the support they've given us actually our tokens as rewards to push their Radiant that we listed. We actually have a Radiant a SILO of lending markets for Radiant, for example, Radiant token. You've got a lot of collaborative ecosystem, which you don't see that like on mainnet, and also with other. So it's well mature. So you see users because gas is cheap. You see users collaborating, or executing sophisticated yield strategies, like basically leverage strategies. So they borrow USDC from us, they deposit it somewhere else, they take another loan and then use it somewhere else. So you see users. And of course, lots of rebalancing. So if you earn 8% for USD on your USDC, and now it pays 9% on another market, you just remove it and deposit it for this 9%. So constant rebalancing, because it's cheap to do so. So definitely in terms of traction, if you don't define traction in terms of also in the through the frequency of doing something. Definitely, it has a lot of traction. We've got a few hundred users, daily users, use our app daily, constantly. Again, leveraging their positions and looking for opportunities. So that's something really, really important. And also, again, as I said, Arbitrum, because there's so much variety and as far as applications, you could between money markets, derivatives, and all. It's it kind of invites you to use the chain more, and lending is just part of it, really.
The difference between these three markets is really interesting. So if you go to app.silo.finance, you've got the Ethereum mainnet markets, which is, I think those are your oldest markets. And then we've got Arbitrum and then the Llama edition, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And yeah, I did not realize that Arbitrum alone holds, as of our recording today, around December 12th, 2023, it holds about 90 million. And as you pointed out, TVL is sometimes a helpful metric, but it doesn't tell the full story. That said, it's a pretty impressive number to see that, especially when you flip over to the Llama edition and you see close to 200 million. So clearly, Silo is growing on Arbitrum as an L2 for all the reasons you pointed out. Gas is cheap. It's a lot easier to come up with interesting strategies there. On the Llama edition, can you walk us through this? How did this come about? Why did you start building for markets that would support the crvUSD stablecoin? And then also maybe some reflection on why you will no longer offer Xi as a stablecoin.
Right. So honestly, we had a Llama version just because our smart contracts enforce having a single asset as a bridge asset across all markets. So traditionally, when we started Silo, we had ETH and Xi. Now, if you want to create a new market, you must pair them with ETH and Xi. You cannot pair them with USDC, for example. That was a limitation in the smart contracts and the design, and now this goes away, of course, in V2. So when crvUSD was released, I was super excited. We were super excited about it. We're still super excited about it, of course, as a decentralized algorithmic stablecoin. We wanted to create lending markets for it. I'll tell you in a bit why. And then, but the issue was we could not add it to our markets because we had Xi and ETH. So we had to deploy a completely new protocol, obviously the same smart contracts, and inherit the security of those legacy ones. And now we created the crvUSD markets. So you have Link with crvUSD, you have Wi-Fi with USD, and of course Curve, the governance token. Now, why? Because I personally and the team, we believe that we need a stablecoin like that, and lending is an incredibly important growth lever for any stablecoin. Stablecoins only grow if you denominate as much debt as possible, because you pay interest in the stablecoin itself. So technically speaking, the more interest you generate, the more supply you need the more supply for the stablecoin. That's number one, and because also it serves as because the interest created, there's always a pressure on the peg upwards. So it helps actually with stabilizing the peg for the stablecoin. So we felt this is a new primitive, the stablecoin. We're a believer in the Curve ecosystem. We're close to it. We've always been close to it, and also users of Curve. Well, let's bet on this stablecoin, and we had to deploy it. And it happened at the time when Curve was removed or was forced out of Aave V2. So we thought, maybe that we can convince Michael to move some of his position, and so and he did. So and crvUSD users started borrowing crvUSD, and then wanted home for it. So it was just a good timing for Curve for Silo Llama.
Yeah, AJ, I think somewhat tying yourself to the success or future success of Curve is never a bad idea, in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, it seems like one of those win-win scenarios. I think crvUSD is super interesting, and I think it's just getting started, and I think it's going to be a big player in this cycle for sure. So you're kind of in at the ground floor, in my opinion. That kind of just leads me to a question though about your current SILO token. What are like the visions in the community for the SILO token? Has there been anything interesting offered up as far as potentially new utility and correct me, like is SILO currently a V token, or does it have that functionality, or is that even something that would be considered on the roadmap? Just kind of seeing this synergy with Curve now and maybe that whole convex family, or I'm kind of speculating now, but
yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about the roadmap. So V2 hopefully comes out in Q1 2024. At the center, there is a V model. Obviously, we're all thankful for the V tokenomics innovated by the Curve people. So veSILO will be at the center of it. So we abandon the current Governor Bravo model that we have, which is varied by Compound, and we move into the V model at the center. Our markets are going to be not be any governance for the market. It will be immutable. Probably the first time I share this. veSILO, it's going to be modeled closer to the V balancer. So you deposit, you can mint it with you lock SILO and you with a little bit of ETH, and you mint veSILO that you can use it to vote for rewards in SILO itself, cross-chain. So we've worked with Chainlink CCIP on that. So you'll be able to vote for the markets that you use. If it happens that you're also a depositor and a holder of veSILO or a borrower, you earn boosted the yield. So that's the utility is definitely there. There is also a functionality of turned off by default to share revenue protocol with veSILO holders. Now, similar to Uniswap and other protocols, the functionality is built. A little bit complicated to execute, but it is definitely built. Turned off for, it's up to the DAO or veSILO holders to vote to turn it on or not. So that's the major functionality. So you get boost, of course, if you're a borrower and a holder of the governance token. And of course, you vote for emissions. And most importantly, there is a path for you to get something out of the protocol revenue. That is more complicated to discuss and activate, of course, but that's what it is. So this all comes out in V1. The veSILO is already developed, audited. We're actually in the process with Trail of Bits right now, the first of 3 audits. veSILO is completely audited, and hopefully we launch the roadmap next month once the audit is complete, and we'll kind of outline our next leg of growth and how we're going to bring more growth to all the mainnet and of course the EVM compatible ones. Now, just crvUSD, just on that note, just one note, we have kind of like crvUSD is a great growth blueprint for all stable coins. I want to see honestly LUSD denominating debt. I want to see a reserve stable coin denominating debt, not just centralized one. Because again, that's the more users will always borrow stablecoins against collateral. They just need to be there, right? So crvUSD, I think we've seen the growth in its supply. It's correlated with the time that we launched crvUSD Llama or the Llama version. Now I think it's a great a success story for all stablecoin issuers that would like to do that. Now, why we're sunsetting Zai as a stablecoin? Because we've discovered that it's going to be very expensive to create and maintain a stablecoin. If you want to maintain the peg itself, you have to spend on that. And, like traditionally, you have to always ensure you have very deep liquidity at the peg, and you have to incentivize LPs to keep that liquidity at the peg in curve pools, and that will just honestly always be larger than all the profits that revenue you're going to make from that stablecoin. So as a lending protocol, we thought that was just an experiment that probably shouldn't materialize. Now, Xi V2 real world asset backed is definitely a possibility that we're exploring.
Oh, that sounds cool. Xi V2 RWA. One other thing I was thinking of here that I want to ask before we wrap is just with veSILO, is there going to be any support you think from the Convex community or ecosystem on that? Is that something you're discussing with that team at all?
No, we have not discussed this, and it is possible, that we get what's quote unquote convexed or whatever the word for it is possible. We don't see that. We're not going to actively seek it. If it happens, it happens. If not, I think it's the growth mechanism and the reason to hold the silo, lock silo for veSILO is present in the system itself.
If I could make a request, maybe consider in the future, once veSILO is up and running, I love what Prisma and f(x) have done with Convex, where so if you're like earning rewards, let's say in the future, you're providing liquidity for Silo, you can either claim your Silo rewards, which, might be in like a vesting contract, or you can claim it as like a CVX Silo, which I love that concept. It's still really new. To be clear, it's pretty high risk. Like I would tell any user, if they're claiming CVX Prisma or CVX FXN, we're all fairly confident that liquidity will build there, but you're basically taking something that's liquid now that is not at peg versus holding something that vests. And so anyways, long story short, I think it's on the Convex community. Given the value that Silo provides, like I know Nomadic and I have discussed, like we kind of see Silo in that, like it's like the Curve family. Some are like almost like brother or sisters-in-law. Some are like second cousins, and Silo's in that for sure. So I'm very curious, like how Curve and Convex will continue to think about how to add value, I guess, to Silo, because you're doing quite a bit now for Curve, for the crvUSD token. You're really helping to bootstrap more interest there and using that token. But AJ, this is a great place for us to wrap up. So I want to just quickly remind our listeners that they should, first, they should learn about Silo Finance by going to silo.finance. They should follow Silo Finance on Twitter at Silo Finance. They can follow you on your personal account on Twitter. It's AIHAM_ETH. And then AJ just wanted to state the obvious, like, thanks so much for coming on. We really enjoyed getting to learn more about Silo. There's quite a bit there you shared that I was totally unaware of. So excited that we could learn a little bit more about what's coming with veSILO. But anything else you'd like to share before we go? Any recommendations for folks that want to get involved with Silo?
Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me. Really, like you said, just to go and try to, Silo and learn about risk isolation and lending. Grateful for the great conversation, and looking forward to having another one, hopefully next year.
Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you're a talented founder or developer, please consider reaching out to our team at fourthrevolution.capital. And for future episodes of the Edge podcast, please check out our link tree at edge_pod.